Hey, welcome to the Elle Russ Show. My name is Elle Russ, and I am a #1 best-selling author and master coach. My intention is to inspire, educate, and motivate you with weekly content featuring amazing guests and solo episodes. Visit my website, elleruss.com, to learn more about me, my courses, free masterclasses, partner discounts, and much more. Enjoy the show. Arielle Ford, welcome back to the show. We've had so many conversations, and I'm so excited to talk about your new book. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing great. The audience, if you haven't heard Arielle before, she is really the leading personality in personal growth and contemporary spirituality for many, many years. The past 30 years, she's been living, teaching, promoting consciousness in all forms of media. She's written so many groundbreaking books, one that really, really helped me so much. And I think I've listened to the audiobook of The Soulmate Secret probably 7 times over the past 10 years. But man, and you have so much free stuff at your website. So I love everything that you offer everyone. I love all of your books. But for those that don't know you, and I know you've told the story a million times, but you became a love coach because you woke up in your mid-40s and you were like, wait a minute, I don't have a love.
I did. I woke up one morning when I was 43 and I went, oh no, I forgot to get married. And I started thinking about how in the world did that happen? And I realized I had been spending all of my time and energy on my business, which was fantastic. I loved working and I loved my business. And I never, ever thought about not having someone in my life until almost every Saturday night around 11 o'clock. I'd be driving home from a screening or a gala or some party. And I'd suddenly realize I had nobody to share it with. I had nobody to talk to.
Yeah.
So I would, say to myself, okay, starting Monday, I'm going to start dating. I'm going to focus on my love life. And of course, Monday would come and I'd have 100 phone calls to make it work and nothing ever happened. So on that particular morning, I decided to make a list of every prayer, process, and ritual I had ever used to build my business and apply it to my love life. And fortunately, it all worked. And
phenomenally well.
Incredibly well. In fact, our 25th anniversary is next week. So it's been working. And I never planned to write a book or teach about it. But a few years after I got married, my sister had me on one of her cruises with 200 of her coaches. And she said, oh, Arielle, come up here. Tell everybody how you manifested your soulmate. And I did this impromptu 45-minute talk. And when it was over, I got mobbed by all these over 40 single women who said, I want a Brian. How do I get a Brian? So that was the start of this entirely new career as a love expert that I never planned to do. Was shocked to discover I was doing it. And now it's been, oh my God, I can't even count that high, at least 15 years that I've been doing it.
Yeah, one of the things you have on your website for free, and so much great free stuff that I have benefited from myself, are your feelingizations, your sort of guided meditations that get people into the feelings of that law of attraction element instead of having it be a heady thing. And they are so lovely and wonderful. And so everybody go to arielleford.com. We'll put everything in the show notes, but just so much amazing free stuff and a great free dating guide ebook. So you offer so many free tools for people to get into it. And I mean, your work has helped me so much. You mentioned Saturday night. For me, the toughest thing was weekends, I think, because during the week you're doing your thing. And then on the weekends, it's like I'd be out and I'd see people and couples together. And then, you start to go, oh, it's like, it's in front of you suddenly, just like the 11 o'clock at night on Saturday. Before we get into your new book, which is a work of fiction called The Love Thief, which I love the storyline here. Let's just talk a little bit more about The Soulmate Secret and what you can offer people, just a few tips before they go to your website and look at all this stuff on how they can start to reimagine, rethink manifesting love.
Well, the first thing you need to do is take control of your thoughts and your beliefs, because there are a lot of single women out there saying, I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too damaged, all the good ones are taken, the one that was got away, and they have all these excuses that they really believe about why they can't have love. And it's just all a big fat lie. There is absolutely no shortage of love in the world, no shortage of love. And if you have the desire to have a soulmate life partner, that is proof enough that the seeds for the fulfillment of that desire already exist, or you wouldn't have the desire for it. It's just sort of basic quantum science 101. But, people are out there saying, oh, well, I tried online dating and it didn't work. Yes, it doesn't work the first 99 times for most people. And that's no reason to give up, because you only need one. And the thing, I wrote this free online dating guidebook that I give away on the website because I wanted to show people exactly how to do it. And the first thing you have to do is accept the fact that 95% of the people you meet online are going to gross you out. And that's okay, right? It's just like you decide, oh, I need a new little black dress for a cocktail party I'm going to. And you go to the mall and you try on, 17 little black dresses, and none of them are right. It doesn't mean the dress doesn't exist. It just means you haven't found it yet. So online dating is, my friend Bella says, it's the greatest man shopping place in the world. Or if you want a woman shopping place, because millions and millions of people are available online, and you get to scroll through and make choices. So I'm a big fan of online dating. I actually, in the last 2 weeks, I have gotten 3 emails from former clients of mine, all women over 60, who have found, met, and married the one from Match.com.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. Never, never, never too late. No, because everybody wants love, right? But you have to become visible. They're not going to find you when you're sitting home on your couch watching the Kardashians by yourself. It's not going to happen that way.
You've mentioned this before, and some of the things you've found working with couples and through your work over the years about what are some important elements that are important for a relationship. Obviously, this could be a list a million long, but you talk about sort of, I don't know if you called it lifestyle compatibility or dreams for the future. Give us some core basic things.
So there's basically 5 things that have been researched and proven to work to have a long-term, happy, committed marriage or relationships. And that is connection, compatibility, good communication, which thank God can be learned, chemistry, although surprisingly, chemistry is the least important. And the single most important thing is a shared vision for the future.
That's what that was. So can you expound on that concept, shared vision for the future? What are we talking about? Where we want to live? What kind of things we want to do?
Yeah. So for me, I knew that I wanted to be legally married and live with somebody 24/7, not have children, live either across the street from the ocean or within view of the ocean. And traveling is my highest value. I knew I needed somebody with a very full passport. I couldn't be with somebody who was agoraphobic or hated to travel. So those were the key things I needed in my life. And, anybody listening to this needs to, sort of understand, well, what is it I'm most looking for? Maybe I want kids or I don't want kids, or, I want to live in Southern California or I want to live in the mountains. I want somebody who appreciates my weirdness, my quirkiness, because all of us want to be loved and accepted for exactly who we are. So before you even start dating, you want to have some clarity about the heart traits and qualities you most want your beloved to embody.
That's such a good way of looking at it. I feel like in my own journey, some of the things that are funny, and I wrote a soulmate, list and all the things that were important to me, qualities and characteristics. They were more like personality, ethical things that I put down there. One of the funny things, and I'm sure you have a million stories about this, but happened to me. So just No offense to anyone from the UK, but growing up throughout my life, was very repelled by English accents. Okay. Now, granted, the English accents, most like, Americans here are like, some Hallmark movie, like pretentious British, like not the way most Brits sound. And there's, of course, 100 dialects there. But I just was always like, I don't know. But then I started to be open and I'd have a few conversations with guys from online that were, I'm like, oh, I'll be open. And I'd have the conversation and the voice and the accent just killed me. And this became a joke with all my friends, that like, oh gosh, I just have this thing against Brits, dating Brits or whatever. And I never understood why everyone thought the accent. Anyway, well, long story short, I was online and where I met my guy, and I saw that he was from the UK, and I almost swiped away. I almost swiped it, Arielle. And instead I sat there and I said, hold on a minute. I'm getting a really great vibe about this. Does it hurt to have another conversation? Is an accent a fucking deal breaker, Elle? Like, just give this a shot. Don't be so discounting. Well, that's my guy. And it's still sort of like funny the way the universe, right? And my friends were like, oh my God, that's hilarious. And what's interesting is he has a different sort of accent from the UK that I love and I think is so sexy. And it's not the one that I thought it would be like someone. I mean, look, it was just kind of base. It would be like someone coming to the US, hearing someone from Alabama and thinking we all spoke like that, right? So I know you have many stories about that where someone might have had a like, no, not attracted to this, or maybe even happened to you with your own husband where you're like, oh, that's funny that I end up with someone like this, considering how I used to feel about it. And so that's why I bring it up, because I want people to, and again, I gave people shots, but again, it was that one moment. And thank God I just was in that moment. It was after the pandemic, right? We'd all been alone for 2 years. And I said, what are you doing here? It's the fucking accent, Elle. Like, what? Just get on the phone.
Well, I had on my soulmate wish list that I wanted somebody who had English as a first language. And that was important to me because I grew up in Miami where the official language is Spanglish. And I dated a lot of Cuban and South American men. But what I noticed was even though their English was quite good, they have different meanings for different words. And since I'm a writer, words are so important to me. Yes. It used to drive me crazy that we weren't on the same page, even though we were using the same words. So I thought, oh, this will just be easier if I have, somebody who had English as a first language. So I end up marrying a guy who, yes, has English as a first language. But what I didn't know, and I could not have put on my wish list, is that he conflates words. What he does to the English language should be illegal. For instance, he'll take the word exaggerate and exacerbate, and he'll turn them into a new word. And so when we first got together, I was always correcting him. And I'd say, oh, no, honey, you mean X. And I did this many times. And finally, one day he said to me, when I'm speaking to you, do you understand what I'm conveying?
Love it.
And I said, yes. And he said, great. So stop correcting me if you understand what I'm talking about. Because I did know, I always knew where he was going, but it was like irritating to me that he was like he does it even now. So you know what AI is, right? Everybody knows what AI is. When Brian talks about it, he calls it A&I. Yes. I just saw this piece on the news about A&I. And of course, my instinct is to want to correct him.
Yeah.
But that's not the kind thing to do. Like if you want to keep your marriage healthy and happy, then you reach out through kindness. You don't make anybody wrong. I mean, clearly if they're about to hurt themselves, you want to correct them. But for the most part, you just do what I call Wabi Sabi love. You learn to find the beauty and perfection in their imperfection. And Brian, one of his crazy imperfections is what he does to words.
That's so funny. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you must have looked up to the universe many times and been like, okay, that's a good one. Good joke on this one. Joke's on me for putting that out there. Let's talk. Well, first of all, you mentioned Wabi Sabi Love, which is another book of yours.
Yes.
So everyone needs to look into that. Let's talk about The Love Thief. You'd been wanting to do this for a while. Give us the rundown on this wonderful fiction that takes us through the world of Holly.
Yeah, so it's a romantic spiritual thriller with a very juicy revenge subplot and a surprising happy ending. And it's a book that came to me as a movie in my head, because I'd already written 11 nonfiction books. I had never planned to write a novel. Never once in my life did I have the conscious thought, oh, I should write a novel someday. But this book kept showing up, and it was kind of scary. Like the title came, and then the first line in the book came, and then the movie started playing in my head, and I kept trying to make it go away because I didn't want to write it. But eventually I just surrendered because I saw that I was going to get no peace until I put it on the page. So I spent 4.5 years writing it. And it's really a story about a 38-year-old woman who has spent her whole life waiting for Prince Charming to arrive. Her whole lifetime dream has been to have the white picket fence with the 2.5 kids and the dog. And here she is, nearly turning 38, and it hasn't happened. And there's no guy in her future until one night, under a firework-filled sky, she meets him. She meets him, and he sweeps her off her feet, and everything's peachy for about 5 months. And he does this very elaborate proposal. And then he cheats on her with her best friend / business partner, and her whole world crumbles. She's just devastated. And not only is her heart broken and her dreams are crushed, and she's lost her business partner, best friend since 7th grade, she also gets in a car accident and nearly dies. So she is at the bottom of the pit, sure that her life is over. Nothing's ever going to be good again. And she ends up going to India. Never wanted to go to India, is not on a spiritual path, not a believer. In fact, she's a reaction to the whole spiritual world because her mother's a new age baby boomer. Her mother,
she's repelled by it. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, her mother used to hang dream catchers over her crib. No. So, but because she is, she's finally healed from her accident, and she doesn't know what to do with her life. She has an auntie who is Indian born but lives in the US. And the auntie gives her $10,000 and suggests that she go to her cousin's cooking school in Rishikesh, India. So off she goes to India, where all kinds of mystical, magical things start to happen, things that she can't even believe are happening to her. And a great healing takes place. So she's a very funny girl. She's very likable. You go on a roller coaster ride with her because she's either, at the depths of depression wanting to kill herself, or, she's in the deepest, saddest depression and grief you could ever imagine. And fortunately, by the end, she is well advised by a man she calls her love walla, who was a retired professor of psychology, who explains to her that she really did nothing wrong, that she was love bombed by a toxic narcissist, that she was taken advantage of, that, she can overcome this, but she needs to really discover what love is. Because like so many women who grew up on fairy tales and Disney movies, most women believe love is a feeling. It's really pathetic. They think that love is the state of being in love, where water tastes wetter and it feels like there's champagne bubbles going through your bloodstream. And what I like to call it is the socially acceptable form of insanity. The state of being in love, while it is one of the best feelings in the world, it's your brain on drugs, it's your brain on oxytocin and dopamine and adrenaline and other things I can't pronounce. It is not love. You're doing this with a stranger, somebody you don't even know. You're having all these wild feelings for. And the state of being in love doesn't last very long. For most people, it lasts 6 months to 3 years at the max. And then it pretty much goes away. But what replaces it when you're in a relationship where you have connection, compatibility, communication, chemistry, and a shared vision of the future, that's replaced by a deeper, richer, more profound, mature adult love. And these are the lessons that Holly gets in The Love Thief.
That's a great way to put it. You mentioned love bombing. So let's I think everyone kind of knows what that is, but let's talk about that. I think one of the problems with this is that people then jump too soon in that first few months of love bombing. And I always like to say, hey, you know what? Consistency. You need to sort of see who this person is and if this behavior is consistent beyond that sort of initial time frame where people get like totally love bombed and duped and then, dumped 3-4 months later, right, kind of thing. So tell people like how to look out for love bombing,
Well,
and
the
how that might be
problem
different from
is,
true connection.
yeah, it's, if here's the problem: toxic narcissists / sociopaths are really good at what they do. They're charming, they're charismatic, they're super smart, and they prey on smart, successful women. And they prey on them because they know, oh, here's a woman who's, put all her time and energy into her career. She's got everything you can imagine going for her except love. And what she wants more than anything is love. And they're adept at whispering into your ear everything you wanted to hear. So things move really, really fast. And even though there might be some part of you saying, oh, this is too good to be true, it's everything you ever wanted to hear. Suddenly it looks like all your dreams are coming true and you're being wined and dined and romanced and made love to in ways you can't even imagine, but it's all an act. And so it's irresistible on a lot of levels. I know a couple of women who have read the book and reached out to me and said, it was bad enough the first time, but I fell for it a second time with somebody else.
Yeah.
Because there's this love deficit they feel in their heart. They've been yearning for that kind of affection and attention for so long that they're willing to ignore the red flags that do pop up. And they do pop up. And even if you confront them, you said to them like 3 months in, you catch them in some significant, lie or deception. And they would, rather than deny it, the really good ones will come back with, it's true. I didn't tell you about this. I didn't tell you because I'm so ashamed of it. And I didn't want you to think poorly of me. And with you, I strive to be a better man, and you're going to really help me with it. If you can forgive me, I promise I'll never withhold anything from you again. And, it's kind of like the woman who's in an abusive relationship where, he beats the crap out of her and then is on his knees begging, please forgive me. I'll never do it again. And of course, the next time they do it again. So it's a terrible trap to be in, because what's happened is, you've fallen for them, right? Then you had sex with them, and then you're an oxytocin bondage with them, and that good, charming, romantic guy is in there because you just spent 60 days with him, but where did he go? And how do I get that back? And on top of all of it, you're suffering all this shame that here I am, this smart woman, and I've fallen for this crap. Like he told me he only had one ex-wife, and I found out there are 3, and there's 4 other kids I don't know about. And so there's shame about it. So it doesn't really get talked about. So, unfortunately, when the only good thing I can say about getting love bombed by a toxic narcissist is that you must be something special, because they don't go after ordinary women.
Nice. Yeah. Way to turn it around on that one. Okay. So you mentioned the mature love, the beyond this sort of initial phase of like stars and, chemicals and all of the things that are happening in our body. We really, truly are on drugs during that time.
And it's a great drug, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
great drug.
Doesn't want that drug, but it's it's a fantasy. It's not real. But the mature love, when you can, here's what it is. So love, real mature adult love, is first and foremost a behavior. It's a behavior, it's a choice, it's a decision, it's an action, it's a way of being. And anybody who's been in a committed relationship for some amount of time will know that you can love your partner, and there may be days when you hate them, but it doesn't mean you don't love them. So if you're looking to your feelings to decide if you love somebody, in this kind of level of relationship, that's the wrong place to look. Are you devoted to them? Is their happiness as important to you as your own? Are they devoted to you? Are they going to be there on your good days and your bad days, especially your bad days? Are they your biggest cheerleader? Are they your safe place to land? That sort of thing. So
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you want to choose somebody, as you were saying, are they showing up? Are they consistent? Is this somebody who will take a bullet for you and that you can trust, who's actually going to be there to hold your hand when you're falling apart?
I know the following trips up a lot of people at any given stage in the relationship. Sort of like an exaggeration of like that Seinfeld kind of syndrome where like every single girl, he had something that was wrong about her. Like her hands were too big, right? It was always something. I don't mean in the beginning, but I'm talking about when you're in a relationship. People, I think there's this false impression that your partner is supposed to be absolutely right? Like compatible in all ways. Like you just talked about, like you're a wordsmith. You're all about words. Your husband's not that guy. Like, but that doesn't mean that just because you don't have that in common, right? So, and I've known people that have all the sports in common, but they just hate each other, right? Like, so I want to talk a little bit about like the concept of how they can't be all things, or to sort of just understand that it's not to make excuses or to get rid of any kind of toxic behavior out there. Well, but like, for example, I have a friend who, we were talking about this, where they were saying that, they're a very philosophical person. They love to get into these kind of topics, but their wife is not. And he's like, you know what? At first it bothered me. It bothered me because I'd want to have these conversations with her. But then I realized that's not why I married her. I didn't marry her for that. I married her for A, B, C, and D, and she is that. And so I had these conversations with you, not her, right? And so can you expand on that? I know you some examples, because I think this is an important one.
Elle, you totally nailed it. Okay. So my friend Allison is a love expert. She says so many women are looking for the hairy version of themselves.
Oh, Allison Armstrong?
Yes, Allison Armstrong. Yeah. And that's true. We want somebody who's going to like want to go to the rom-coms with us, and we'll go sit at the Agape church with us. And once, but you know what? That's what girlfriends are for. When it comes to relationship, the first thing to know is that you and only you are personally responsible for your own happiness.
Yes.
At this day and age, we don't need a partner. We don't need one. Do we desire one? Is life sweeter with one? I say it is. And if you have a partner, then look at them as the icing on the cake to your already wonderful life.
Right. You have to enjoy your own company first and foremost, and still do when you're in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's like the thing you were just talking about, deep conversation. So, like Brian only likes to have deep conversations. He doesn't want to do small talk. He only wants to do big talk. And I'm perfectly fine doing small talk. I can be as fluffy as all of them. And I don't really want to do the deep talk. I don't want to have the meaning of life conversations too often, but I have friends that do. And I'm very happy to put them together for those conversations, and since I'm his number one major audience, when he's in that mode of wanting to get up on his soapbox and talk about the deeper meaning of whatever, I have learned from Dr. John Gottman, one of the gods of how to make a marriage work, that it's my job to put down my devices, to turn my physical body towards him, to, look at him, listen to him, ask questions, because that's part of my commitment to sharing my life with him, is to hear what he has to say and to be curious about it. Even though some of the topics, I'm not like, he loves politics, absolutely loves politics. I grew up in a political home. My father was an elected official. I hate politics. And I always said, when I grow up, I'm never going to have to hear about politics again. Excuse me. I found somebody who's a total political junkie. So I'm the most overeducated person there is right now about what's going on in the world. But you know what? I want him to pay equal attention to the things I'm interested in. Like, I'm going to go see the Barbie movie.
Right.
He doesn't want to see it, but I'm going to go with my friend. And I know there's a part of him that would like to see it, but he won't go.
Yeah.
But, it's like you don't have to do everything with your partner. Find the things that you both enjoy, and those things will change. Like early on when we first got together, one of the things on my must-have list was I wanted a partner who was going to walk with me every day. I love to walk early in the morning. And in the beginning, he did. Now, 25 years later, he has other exercises that are better for him and better for his body. Walking doesn't happen to be on that list anymore. So I go off walking with my girlfriends, or I walk by myself. So, you have to be flexible on all levels.
Well, it's interesting that, like, if we compare them in daily life, we don't blame our friends for not having all the things, right? Like I have my friends that talk about this stuff with, and then I have other friends that do know nothing about that topic, and it would be dumb to bring it up with them because it's just not in their wheelhouse and whatever. And we don't blame our friends for not having all of the components. Do you know what I'm saying? So It's interesting that we would put that on anyone. One of the other things I want to talk to you about is communication, in mature adult love, moving forward, right? Figuring out how to work with each other. You've mentioned many times that you're a fucking mess eating, and you've told your husband at the beginning, you're like, hey, I'm a mess. I'm going to put food all over the place. It can be everywhere. And then you talked about a story where, you looked at you were judging each other on how you were spending money. And, this is right. Money and sex are a reason couples break up. So I want to talk about, again, maybe your personal experiences or people you've coached. You've been at a million weddings already. Some of these moments and things about, communicating with one another on, because it's hard. We look, that situation is a great example of you and your husband with the clothing and the quality of things. I love that.
Well, so Brian grew up in a very upper middle class home. He was the youngest child, and his mother taught him early on that you only buy designer clothes. You buy the best of everything always. And I grew up in a place where my parents fought every day about how there wasn't any money. And all of my clothes were hand-me-downs from other people, that had their labels from when they went to camp sewn in them, and I was taught that if you had to buy something that you couldn't get for free, you bought the most inexpensive item. And so I'm trying to think of the right word. I can't think of it right now. Anyway, I had money issues. Brian didn't have money issues. Now suddenly we're married, and we were on a book tour. I think we were in Cleveland, and it started to snow, and we weren't anticipating snow, and Brian needed to get a winter coat. So we go to this department store, and he pulls this coat off a rack. He tries it on. It looks great on him. I look at the price tag. It's $700. And I'm like, oh my God, $700. Like I always went to the outlet factory where you bought a coat for $70.
Right. Or I think like, well, we live in California. Like you only need this coat for these like couple of
right. Yeah. Well, and he was shocked at my reaction. And he said to me, he goes, well, the last winter coat I bought was an Armani, and it was $2,000, and I still have it. At this point, I didn't know that actually when you pay more for stuff, it actually lasts longer. I didn't know that. But that was the start of, how are we going to blend our money if we're spending it so differently? So, I had to tell him the truth about my fear of becoming a bag lady. That was my deepest, darkest secret, that I would be poor and be on the street. And of course, he never once had that thought ever, because there was always plenty of money. He always earned good money, and it just wasn't his issue. So eventually what we ended up working out was that we would have 3 bank accounts. We would have mine, we would have his, and we'd have the combined account. And we wouldn't police each other on the individual accounts, but on the joint account, the rule was nobody spends $500 or more without getting a sign off from the other person. And we had no shared credit cards for the first 16 years of our relationship.
I mean, that's not 16 out of 25. That's a long stretch.
It was a long stretch, because I finally realized one day that even though we had, and I taught him how to shop sales, I want you to know. He had never shopped a sale in his life. I finally realized that even though we had different ideas around spending money, that he was highly responsible when it came to finances, and that I could absolutely trust him with all of the money and all of the accounts. And when I had that awareness, not only did I get us, a couple of joint credit cards, but we went to the bank and I had him sign so that he could access my business accounts if he needed to. Not that he ever has. I'm not sure he even knows what bank I go to, but we had to work it out because it was my issue, right? It was my issue. Poverty consciousness. Yes. That's the word I was looking for. That's my core wound, poverty consciousness. And it's gotten much, much better over the years. And I've learned to trust the universe in ways that he already does. And it's easy for him because money, like what I said, wasn't his issue. It was always there. But now I see at this stage in my life, the truth is I've never really suffered. I've never missed a meal. I have too many friends at this point that nobody's going to let me starve or live on the street. And it's just my own mishigosh that I need to manage. It's my emotional management thing.
Right. And his real life behavior with money was sort of in conflict with your fear about his $700, coat. It was just that in that moment, and you unpacked all of it. And I love it. Let's talk about just communication in general. When things break down, people aren't listening. They walk away and they bail on the conversations, and things just get gross and stupid and resentments build. How can, when there is a difficult conversation, like the one you might have had to have about the money, I know you'd say, you come with a place from love, but it's hard in those moments. We're all getting triggered by all of our stories and things like you were.
Yeah.
What are the best tips for how to stop it or how to express, hey, to get it back to a place of love and true communication, versus getting all into the shit that ends up with a terrible, bad, yucky vibes?
Well, for me, when I'm getting triggered, the best thing I can do is take a time out and just say, you know what, I'm feeling really triggered. I need to go figure out, is this my stuff or your stuff? And I need a timeout. And then I'll go for a walk, or I'll do my Inner Balance app from HeartMath, or I'll take, an aromatherapy bath, and I'll process myself. Like, why am I so triggered by whatever just happened? And most of the time I can figure it out for myself. And then I'll just go and say, listen, I don't want any bad energy. I love you. And I know you love me. How about we kiss and make up? Or if we need to talk it through, it's like, how was this for you? Like, here's what happened to me, and this is what it was for me. How is it for you? And we just have a sane conversation. And we use some of what's his name? Harville Hendricks has this great way to have a dialogue. He calls it the Imago dialogue, where, you would say to me, well, when you said ABC, I heard XYZ, and it made me feel 1, 2, 3.
Right.
And then I would say, okay, so what I heard you say was blank. And then I also heard you say it made you feel X. Did I get that right? Just to make sure we're both on the same page. And then you'll just say, okay, now that that's what I heard, tell me more. And you just get curious. And you don't ever have to agree with them. You don't need to agree. Well, of course, I'm wrong and you're right. You can just say, oh, well, I respect how that was for you, and I understand why you would see it that way. Can we agree to disagree?
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah. And in my book, Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate, I actually have scripts for how to do this, for how to have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I think at first, I think where people, in my past experiences, I feel like at first you are the reactionary person. Then over time, you realize that never yields the results you want ever. Right. And so many things can be avoided if, and I love the way you expressed how you needed to take a break, where you're like, I'm being triggered and I don't know if it's like me or something that you let me go figure this out for a second. It's playing like a neutral feel. It's like, hey, I'm not blaming you. I don't want you to, I'm not walking away like, you just triggered me. You're like, hey, I'm triggered and I don't know what it's about. I love that because that's just an unknown.
Yeah, because I understand that Brian has never woken up in the morning thinking, how can I drive Arielle crazy today?
Right.
Our partners don't think like that, but we react to them like they're doing it on purpose. Like if they really understood me, they would have never said that. And of course, we haven't even clarified what it is we think they said. We've made the assumption that we think they said ABC, but we don't really know that that's what's so, or they could have misspoken. So that's why it's really important not to react too quickly. I've had to really train myself in social media not to do that, because sometimes I'll see something and I'll think of some snarky thing I want to respond back with. And often if I read it another time slowly, I'll realize I completely misread it anyway. But, we're responsible for how we behave and how we react. And we need to be patient and not be willing to pull the trigger so fast.
Yeah. And also too, it's like if you don't work on those issues now, they're going to pop up in the next relationship and the next one. Not all are workable, of course, get out of abusive situations, of course. But, at the beginning, when you were talking about love and, it's 25 years now with Brian, and you talked about like the phases and then this mature, deepened sense of love. How can you express that? What does that feel like to you now, the way that you love Brian?
That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about it that way, except to say that I can't believe 25 years has gone by so quickly. It's like a flash that it's gone by. And there's a level of emotional and physical safety I experienced with him that certainly wasn't there in the beginning, because even though we dated for a year before we got married, the truth is I didn't really know him, right? I mean, I only knew what he had told me, but I hadn't experienced, what it was like to see how consistent he really is and what he's really up to. So I'd say the longer we're together, the more I admire and respect who he is as a human being, and the more I trust him to always be looking out for me.
I would love to know, what are a couple of things, 2-3 things that come to mind, where people used to ask you, like, how do I find my Brian? Like, how do I get a Brian? What is it about Brian that people would want? What do you love so much about him? I know there's a laundry list, but what are some top ones that might resonate with other people?
Well, in attachment theory, he is what is called a secure type. So there's secure, there's anxious, and there's avoidant are the 3 major types. And so a secure type isn't neurotic, right? They know who they are, and they're not afraid to have hard conversations, right? They're a mature adult. So I would say you want to determine early on, like you need to know what you are, because there's patterns that develop. Like quite often, women who are anxious types, that are always overthinking and wanting to do the right thing, they tend to get drawn to avoidant types. Avoidants are people who have freedom as their highest value, and they have a very hard time committing or paying attention. So the anxious type is constantly smothering them and wanting more than the avoidance willing to give. It's a very complex topic, but I would say having a secure type is something that's really important, and have somebody who are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Oh, I've interviewed some experts on it, and it's so I just want to say to everyone, if you on YouTube, and I should find the name and put in the show notes, but there's like some British guy who did a show, I don't know, 20 years ago or something, because it's a little bit of old footage. And he's interviewing adults that are like skilled in the Enneagram and talking to them about what their life has been like as their Enneagram number. And I watched my Enneagram number and watched these 3 people that were, at the time that I watched it, maybe they were like 25, 30 years older than me. And it was like they were speaking from my mind.
What are you? I'm a 7. What are you?
I don't want to get it wrong, but I believe I'm an 8.
Yes. Okay. I'm a 7 with an 8 wing. So that makes perfect sense. So Brian is a 2. And the 2s are the lovers of the universe. They're the givers. You want to be with somebody who's a 2 because they're kind and they're considerate, and they care about other people. They're caretakers. And 7s, for the most part, we're the party animals. We're the ones who just really want to have fun. We want to sort of skip through life. And the 8s are the high achievers. But their dark side is they can be sort of controlling,
And the worst part of mine, at least that it's what I talk about in my second book, but the little notion of, choose your battles wisely. This woman who was a corporate like badass who was an 8 was talking about how her need for like love of justice and helping the underdog would affect her in negative ways, that like she was on the train and some kids with knives got on and started slashing the seats, and without thinking, and this is totally something I would have done too and have done, without thinking, she was like, hey, what the fuck, and like she realized later, I could have, like, what was I doing? Not everyone's battle is mine, and not every injustice I have to go. So I had to learn that about myself, because it would be tough. Like growing up in downtown Chicago, I'd be on the public bus and someone would like hit their kid. And I felt compelled and frustrated that I couldn't go immediately rectify that situation and say something. And you know what I mean? So I learned over time that I had to hold back. It's a wonderful instinct, right? But it can get you in trouble. And then,
it can get you hurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you find that interview and put it, and I would love to email it to me when you find it. Sounds fascinating. But anyway, we were talking about like, what are you looking for? So for me, being with a secure type, somebody who you can totally trust and is devoted to you would be really important. Somebody who's got a kind heart, and and somebody who is really considerate, somebody who's really considerate and thinks about other people too. But I'm pretty much convinced at some point that we get the perfect person, and there'll be good traits, and there'll be traits we don't like so much, and even those are good for us.
So the Love Thief is going to teach us so many of these and more lessons we've kind of talked about, but through Holly's story. We can get that on Amazon and everywhere else, or?
Yes. And if you go to the website is thelovethief.com. So if you order from there, you have access to this incredible bonus, which is I had 8 of the world's top yoga teachers, and I gave each of them a difficult emotion to make a video about the yogic philosophy of, let's say, betrayal or grief or depression or, anger, and then the yoga pose to diffuse it. So there's these 8 incredible videos, and they're free when you order the book from thelovethief.com.
I love it. Thanks again, as usual, and for your work and inspiring me and helping me with my love life as well. I mean, like I said, I think it's been about 7 or 8 times over the years that I just kept coming back to your work. And then, it's such good work. And some of it's tough, some of it's tough to look at, but it's like such the juicy stuff that gets us what we want. So everyone go buy a copy of The Love Thief and check out arielleford.com. Everything's in the show notes. Thanks so much again for your wisdom.
Thank you. It's always a joy to be with you.
Have a great day. And everyone else, we'll see you next week. Hey listeners, over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.